What's up, everyone? Welcome back to Redonkulous Gaming. Today I'm going to get into some Vengeance Demon Hunter gameplay by joining the Venthyr Covenant. And Venthyr is going to bring us a rather unique class ability called Sinful Brand. If you're not familiar, this is where you brand an enemy with the mark of the Venthyr. This is going to slow their attack speed and their cast speed by 30%, which is really a passive mitigation talent when you think about it, and it inflicts a dot that lasts over 8 seconds, and it hits pretty darn hard right now. The other thing is that this ability synergizes really well with Metamorphosis, in that when you hit that button, when you hit Sinful Brand and you got Metamorphosis up, every enemy you're in combat against within range is going to get Sinful Brand active on them. So it's a really neat skill right now, and something we're going to have fun playing around with. I've paired this Covenant and Covenant ability with a skill called, or a legendary effect called, Collective Anguish. And this is where casting I-Beam or Fell Devastation, so it works for both Havoc as well as Vengeance, will summon a Havoc Demon Hunter to cast I-Beam. So, since we're going as Vengeance, when I cast Fell Devastation, I will have a Havoc Demon Hunter coming and casting I-Beam on the same targets that I am currently casting Fell Devastation on. So this is a really fun one to mess around with, and looking forward to pairing these abilities together. Alright, another hour-long queue on beta, and we are in a dungeon, so let's start talking. Ultimately, if you have not seen any of my past videos, you'll need to know that really I look to answer 3 questions. The first one is, how does the ability feel? So how does Sinful Brand feel? Is it a fun ability to use? Does it add a lot of value? Is it something that's just fun to push, or is it something that you just kind of push and forget about the effects and you don't really need to worry about it? The next question is ability strength. How strong is the ability in terms of how it's tuned today? And of course, everything is still in beta, so there's a long way to go. We could see some changes, but ultimately, how strong is it right now? Those are questions that I can answer, just kind of based on my initial testing. And then the overall viability of the skill. And what I mean by viability of the skill is specifically, can this skill be used and have value in more than one type of content? So more than just kind of solo content, more than just raiding, more than just dungeons, so on and so forth. So we'll kind of work our way from top to bottom. Again, this is the Venthyr Covenant, and Sinful Brand is the skill in which we're testing. You'll also notice that every time I cast Fell Devastation, I've got my little demon buddy, my Havoc demon buddy, casting I-Beam. It's a legendary effect, and something I felt like paired really, really, really well with the Covenant class ability. And that alone, I will say, is a ton of fun. But we're not here to talk about the legendary item effect. We're here to talk about the class Covenant ability. So let's get into it. How does Sinful Brand feel? What I can tell you is that it is very much a button that you push, and a dot goes up, and you do damage, and that feels good. But the one thing that you kind of almost forget is that when you are slowing the cast time or the attack speed of an enemy, that is mitigation in and of itself. When you slow an enemy by 30%, that means that 30% delay in attack is 30% less time that they are spent attacking you. And this dot lasts for 8 seconds. So when you synergize this with Metamorphosis, and you cast Sinful Brand, and you get it up on a pack of 5, 6, 7 mobs that are attacking you, and they're all immediately slowed, you have mitigated damage that you would have had incoming otherwise. And that's a lot of fun. The other thing that's really fun is that when you get that full 8-second dot up on an enemy, you watch your damage just spike for those 8 seconds. This dot hits really hard right now, hoping that Blizzard doesn't hit it with the Nerf bat too quickly here, because it's crazy fun. This ability is crazy fun because you're a tank that is mitigating passively without really thinking about it and putting out some decent damage over 8 seconds. Now, you've got a minute-long cooldown to consider, so it's not something that you can mash for every single pack, so you're going to have to pick and choose your moments for this one. But overall, it's a crazy fun ability, and it's something that you just push. You don't need to worry about it. It does its thing. but you're gonna want to be strategic about how you do it. So some people may find the fact that it's a set and forget ability to be not fun. The fun for me comes in the form of a tank doing very big damage over a short window, so you have that burst opportunity, and then when you cast it with meta up and you got your demon form going, it's even better because of the way that you're bursting down AoE packs, or even just mitigating crazy amounts of damage that otherwise would have been coming to you over those 8 seconds. Healers are going to absolutely love Vengeance DHs that have this going for them. Now, ability strength, we already started to touch on it a little bit because it's kind of hard to separate the two, but when you look at the strength of the ability right now, I think it's in a very good place, but I can see a future where Blizzard decides to nerf the overall dot damage. They're going to have to be careful because obviously this is a class-wide ability. It's not done from spec to spec. We're obviously talking about Vengeance Demon Hunter, but Blizzard is going to look at it from the Demon Hunter class as a whole. So if they nerf the damage on Sinful Brand, they're going to have Havoc Demon Hunters getting a little pissy about that. So hopefully they don't touch it, and if they touch it and they adjust it, it's not necessarily the base damage that it has going for it right now, which is for 440% of your attack power over 8 seconds. So hopefully they don't touch that. Odds are we'll see some adjustments to it. We'll probably see that come down to maybe about 400, maybe even a little bit less. But we may have conduits to kind of help balance that out. The other thing I haven't mentioned is Door of Shadows, and I'm only going to bring it up briefly because Demon Hunters have tons of mobility already. That's not necessarily a weakness for Demon Hunters. So the Covenant-wide ability for Door of Shadows is not necessarily a reason alone to be picking Venthyr. But what I will say is that it can be a very fun ability when you use it in conjunction with the conduits, in that you can pop up on trash mobs and you can disorient them for a second while you go ahead and get Immolation Aura and get control of them there. The alternative to that, of course, if you pick any other Covenant, is ultimately going to be the fact that you can just jump on top of them and have your sigil go off and get immediate and initial aggro on those guys. So I'm only going to bring up Door of Shadows just the one time, just to kind of say it is redundant. If you watched my Night Fae video for Demon Hunters, you'll know I'm not a huge fan of the extra mobility that some of these Covenants are bringing us, because we don't necessarily need it, but it's still a fun ability. Now, I mentioned that the strength of the ability is in a very good spot right now. I can see it being adjusted down before launch goes live, and if not, we're probably going to see a nerf relatively early on, just because, as you notice, whenever I do get my Sinful Brand attack up, it's generally my hardest hitting spell over that 8-second period of time, and then it starts to fizzle. So if they don't actually adjust the strength of the ability, which again, yes, this is a strong ability, then I can see them increasing the cooldown, or I can see them doing something that will make the choice in which you have to use Sinful Brand more meaningful. Blizzard is all about meaningful and making good choices when it comes to these Covenant skills. They've said as much in their blue posts and in many interviews, so we don't need to go down that rabbit hole. Now, last but not least, we have Viability. And Viability of Sinful Brand being used across raid, dungeon, solo, PvP, so on and so forth. Initially, when I read the tooltip, just coming into it without doing any testing, I'm reading Sinful Brand and I'm going, oh, that's a great skill for PvP, because it would be great to slow down casters. It would be great to really bother some melee and give them a longer cooldown or whatever it may be for that extra 30%. And it's just a nice thing to have that's kind of like a troll ability. I actually feel like it has its place across all content right now. I think because of the fact that it hits relatively hard, and because of the fact that it's giving you the passive mitigation by slowing the attacks against you, and because it can be cast on all targets that are currently fighting you, if you're taking down a large trash pack through meta, it's something that is very useful in all content. So I think this is one of the better skills that Blizzard has developed, not just for the Vengeance spec, but across the entire class, which is something that it's hard to say. So Venthyr for Demon Hunter right now as a class feels really good, but Sinful Brand as a tank feels maybe even better than it would, in my opinion, for Havoc. So the overall viability, I get great use out of this thing in dungeons. I've done a ton of them so far. I've timed it with meta so that I can ultimately make sure that I am taking advantage of the mitigation that comes by slowing my enemies. I have also used it on raid bosses or not raid bosses, but dungeon bosses where I know I'm about to get a big hit. And it's been really nice to have that available because that's an 8-second reduction in terms of the damage that you may have received because of the slowing in attack speed. And then I also have my Fiery Brand to reduce damage for those other hits. So now I feel like I don't just have Fiery Brand when big damage is coming on a 1-minute cooldown, but I have Sinful Brand as well, and that's really, really nice. And it makes it feel like now I have Fiery Brand plus Sinful Brand, and they're both going to do roughly the same thing. Fiery Brand's going to give you just the flat-out mitigation, whereas you're going to see that more passive effect coming from Sinful Brand. So overall, the viability across the class of Demon Hunter is there, but specifically for the Vengeance spec, I really, really like it. Let me know your thoughts, please. By all means, comment below. Let me know if you feel like I missed anything. So far, this has probably been the most fun I've had testing Demon Hunter in any of the Covenant classes. There are some shortcomings in some of the others and some tweaks that I think can be made to make the other ones viable, but so far this one feels like a very, very, very strong Covenant choice for Vengeance Demon Hunters.